Edo State APC reports Governor Baseki to Inspector General of Police accusing him of intimidating party members. Court asks Kano State government to pay 10 million naira in damages to the post-mayor of Kano Alhaji Aminu Bayero. President Bola Tinubu to depart Abuja for Lagos State ahead of Eid al-Kabir celebrations. And outside Nigeria, let's look at the following headlines. Niger court lifts immunity on the post-President Mohamed Bazoum to be prosecuted for treason by the military junta. South African lawmakers take oath of office in first parliamentary session ahead of election of president and deputy president. Well, tonight on Politics HQ, Court of Appeal has ordered the parties in the River State House of Assembly crisis to maintain the status quo. What exactly does this mean? What exactly is the status quo in this matter, and how will it affect the balance of political party in River State? Stay with us to find out. Kofi Bartel's Politics HQ starts now. You're welcome. Recall that last month, Justice C.N. Wali of a High Court in River State, sitting in Port Harcourt, issued an interlocutory injunction restraining 27 or 25 lawmakers of the River State House of Assembly loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Hon Ogbonna Nwuke, from parading themselves as members of the River State House of Assembly. Well, today, the Port Harcourt Division of a Court of Appeal sitting in Port Harcourt in a case filed by Martins Amehule on behalf of the 26 others, lawmakers, challenging the decision of the River State High Court, which favored Victor Okojumbo. Don't forget, these 27 lawmakers, they come to the All Progressives Congress. And Okojumbo, of course, took them to court. He is the Speaker of the Pro-Fubara River State House of Assembly. That Court of Appeal has ordered all the parties in the River State House of Assembly crisis to maintain the status quo ante bellum, pending the determination of the case. You remember, we had extensive discussion on this last week when Justice Wali gave that order, an interlocutory injunction prohibiting Martins Amehule and the other 26 of parading themselves as members of the River State House of Assembly. In other words, that they had lost their seats. Let's introduce our guests tonight, because this new ruling brings a different twist to the case. We want to understand and take the thoughts of opinion leaders and stakeholders in River State. We're starting with former Commissioner for Housing in River State. He's an academic, a former local government chairman, Dr. Gift Worlu. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right, and also River State-based lawyer, is former chairman of Degama local government area in River State. We have Mr. Sogbeye Eli. Mr. Sogbeye Eli, good evening to you.
Kofi, my pleasure to be here again.
Yes, we're here.
My pleasure to be here again, yeah.
We're here. And of course, Hon Ogbonna Nwuke, former member of the River State House of Assembly. He represented the good people of Eche Omuma Federal Constituency. Honorable, it's good to see you.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Okay, I want to start with Sogbeye Eli. What are the implications of today's ruling at the Court of Appeal, Port Harcourt Division?
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Nigerians. What the appeal court did today was simply to maintain the status quo, which is the status quo. My Lord, the Honorable Justice Charles N. Wali of the High Court of River State took an application, motion ex parte, from the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Victor Okojumbo, and others, praying the court to restrain Martins Chika Amehule and his friends from parading themselves as Speaker and members of the House of Assembly, respectively, pending determination of the motion on notice. That ex parte motion gave rise to an interim injunction. Upon that injunction granted by the High Court judge via the ex parte motion, those who were asked by the court to be placed on notice, that is Amehule and Co., thought it fit to approach the Court of Appeal to probably arrest the trial court from going further. So the court adjourned to take the motion on notice. And upon that date, granted the motion interlocutory injunction to restrain them further. So what happened was this. What happened today was Appeal Court took that application and in its wisdom ordered that the prayer for leave to compile and transmit records of the trial court to the Court of Appeal was granted, Ameul and Co. They have those number of days to do that. But the prayer for restraining the court below from proceeding further, yes, that was also taken, because of course both courts cannot run side by side. But essentially the prayer for setting aside the order, the both interim and which was upgraded to the local tree, to stop them from parading as Speaker and members of the Assembly was not granted. That's the bottom line. That's the status quo. So as it stands today, Victor Kojumbo is the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Rivers State. As it stands today, Martin Ameula and his friends cannot parade themselves as House of Assembly members. And of course, ordered the respondents within 72 hours to file their own flies after the appellants would have filed records.
Okay, Sogbeye Eli, thank you very much. Because of time, we want to go to Gift Worlu, sir. What's your understanding of today's ruling by the Court of Appeal in Port Harcourt? Dr. Worlu.
Thank you, Kofi, and good evening to Sogbeye Eli and Ogbonna Nwuke. I want to start by saying that, and I've always said this, that Rivers State is today in a pitiable state. No thanks to the avoidable crisis that has engulfed the state since the coming of Governor Fubara in Rivers State. The PDP campaigned in the last election on the mantra of consolidation and continuation of the new Rivers vision. And on that platform, Rivers people voted overwhelmingly for the PDP. And as you know, the PDP won all the seats in the Assembly, won all the federal seats, and also produced the governor. But unfortunately, that contract signed between the party and the governor and the people of Rivers State has been rescinded. But that's a matter for another day. Now, what we are here now talking about is the decision of the Court of Appeal. And I can tell you that there are several issues before the Court of Appeal. But what I understand by that ruling is that there is a war going on in Rivers State, whether anybody likes it or not. There's a war, a political war going on in Rivers State that affected so many things, affected the politics, the economy of the state, and even the social life of the state. And some people went to court to say that Martin Ameula and Co. had lost their seats following their purported defection from the PDP to the APC. And that was the beginning of the war. Now, if the court rules that status quo be maintained, my understanding is that it means go back to the positions where you were before the war started. Now, I don't have the order of the court, and I'm not a lawyer, but I have my elementary understanding of law coming from my study of business law in school, and of course we did law of contracts. And when you talk about status quo ante, they are saying take the people back to where they were, their previous position before the war. And if the war be about whether they defected or not, then I think that status quo ante will mean that they should go back to the positions that they were before the war. And at that time, there was no mention of Okojumbo and Co. So the understanding that I want Rivers people to take, it's unfortunate now that lawyers come and say whatever they like. Everybody is saying what they like because Rivers State has become that the yard of that proverbial man that brought home anti-festive fagot. So if we're talking about what transpired in the courts today, I think it will be premature for anybody. We have to wait and see the order. I don't know, Kofi, you as a journalist, I don't know if you have seen the order of the court. Yes, I don't know if you have seen it. So a lot of things are flying on social media and all of that. Maybe in the coming days, we will see the order of the court. We'll be able to understand the content and know which issues the judges were speaking to. And of course, as you know, if you go through social media today, you will see that people on both sides are writing. Some of them are jubilating. Some are saying that the thing is one party is saying is in their favor, the other party is saying is in their favor, and all of that. So that for me, that's not what it should be. And I'm happy that the appeal court has given a short notice for them to come and make their responses. When they do that in the next 3 or 4 days, then of course.
Okay, all right. Gift Worlu, it seems we have lost the connection. But I'll go to Hon Ogbonna Nwuke.
And then we hope that the judges will look into the matter expeditiously and come up with a position that perhaps will consolidate where we're.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gift Worlu. Hon Ogbonna Nwuke, what's your own understanding of today's developments?
Let me thank you for inviting me. I think that clearly the issue of what should be status quo has always been subject to several interpretations. And of course, even now that we have appeared on this program, not many of us have seen the clear ruling of that court. But when you're looking at the issue of status quo, then you also need to ask yourself, what is status quo in this instance? My understanding of this, looking at the history of this case, is that returning to the status quo means maintaining the position of the speaker, because we have Speaker Victor Okojombo, who is in the saddle at the moment. And if the court says, pending when we hear the full matter, the implication is that as we speak, that the speaker who is on board, whose position has been protected by the courts, Martin Amehule, as you know, have been asked not to parade. So I do not imagine that Amehule and 25 others have been exempted from court to parade. In other words, what this would mean to me as a layman, I'm not a lawyer, let me accept that. I was a former lawmaker, but I believe very strongly that a reference to maintenance of status quo refers to the maintenance of the status quo that we have in place at this time. And that status quo is the one that recognizes the fact that the new speaker is in charge. And there can be no pretense about that. And I know one thing about the law. It does not probate and reprobate at the same time. Now, if there's a standing order saying clearly that Amehule and 25 others should not parade as elected lawmakers of Rivers State pending the determination of the case, then the decision of the court, which we have before us, or which we are discussing at this time, even though without full details, reference will be made to Okojombo remaining as speaker pending the determination of the case.
Okay, I want to go to Sogbeye Eli. Gift Worlu used, Dr. Gift Worlu used a term, Barrister Eli. He said status quo ante means before the war. Do you agree?
Well, Kofi, at the risk of sounding impatient with the other brother in the panel, I had both of them say they're not lawyers. So why don't they leave this province for me?
No. I mean, we may not be lawyers. No, sir. It was a simple question.
Come on, let me say this.
Okay.
Status quo, that's the language of the law today.
Yeah.
It didn't say status quo ante bellum.
Have you seen the judgment? Have you seen the judgment? The ruling, sorry?
It's a ruling.
Have you seen the ruling? Sorry about that, slip of tongue.
I've not seen it, but we know what happened.
I spoke to someone. I spoke to somebody who followed the. Were you in court? Were you in court, sir?
Kofi, let me give you a simple analysis.
Yeah.
Matt Mayula and his friends went on appeal to challenge the ruling of Justice Wali, which restrained them. That was the status quo. They were restrained. If the appeal court had set aside that ruling by granting their prayers today, you say that has gone back to when Matt Mayula could parade. The appeal court did not grant that ruling today.
Were you in court, sir? Were you in court?
Listen. They could not grant them a ruling in that direction and ask them to go and compile and file, compile records and file within 72 hours. And that's the 20th. If the court is done with that prayer, it is done with it. It cannot adjourn from that day to come and take that prayer again. It's as simple as ABC. Let's not confuse issues here. The status quo ante bellum refers to, status quo rather of this matter refers to the suit that was generated by Okojombo Speaker, upon which Justice Wale breathed life into his prayers, and further to which Matt Mayula and others are challenging the appeal court. So the appeal court did not set aside that ruling.
Okay, I asked you. Thank you very much, Sogbeye Eli.
Hold on, sir.
Barrister, please.
Yes.
Just before I lose my train of thought, I asked you. I said, Dr. Worlu said, status quo ante bellum means before the war, and I asked you, do you agree that that's the meaning? You haven't answered.
Well, listen, status quo means state of affairs. Those people bring war. It must not be war. It can be anything other than war.
No. I asked a simple question, Mr. Eli.
I'm coming.
Gift Worlu said status quo ante bellum.
It's not a yes.
Means before the war.
It's not a yes or no answer. Kofi, it's not a yes or no answer.
No, do you agree? Was my question. Do you agree?
I'm not in the dock. I'm not in the dock as it's not a no answer. It cannot be a leading question. Listen, I'm explaining to you so our readers will follow us, our viewers will follow us. Status quo means state of affairs. It must not be about war.
Okay.
Ante-bellum means before that state of affairs. This is what is taking us back to. Unfortunately, that's what the law is about.
Okay, so is Gift Worlu right? Barrister, is Gift Worlu,
when Doctor... When it says ante-bellum...
Is he right when he says before the war?
I don't like the use of the word war. It must not be war.
No, is he right when he says before the war?
Kofi, I think we should make progress on this.
Okay, can I rephrase, please?
Can I rephrase? War. Yes.
Let's replace war with litigation, before the litigation. And what is the litigation? And what was the position prior to the litigation?
Now the court did not say status quo ante bellum, for your information. The court said status quo.
Status quo ante bellum. You are using the word status quo ante bellum in explaining your situation.
No, you use it and I try to correct you. Status quo means that the suits generated by Victor Okojombo at the High Court of Rivers State, upon which Justice Wali made his ruling, again, which gave rise to the application that came, the interim application that is now like interlocutor application that came before the Lord, the Honorable Justice of the Court of Appeal, that was today admitted upon, all right? So they've adjourned to June 20th. If they are done with that ruling, they cannot adjourn again to June 20th. Don't forget, it's an interlocutor application. The substantive matter I see before me, Lord, the Honorable Justice Charles N. Wali, the High Court of Rivers State. So no matter what they do, what they also prayed for today was, so as it were, abort the proceedings before the Honorable Justice C.N. Wali, if they granted their prayers as prayed. That would have been premature. I mean, Lord, the Honorable Justice of the Court of Appeal restrained themselves from going to that level. And I told them to look, compile and file the records within 72 hours. All right? And within which time, the respondents, as Victor Kojibanko, will respond.
Sogbeye Eli, you said you weren't in court, and neither do you have a copy of the ruling. You know, so I do not know where you're getting your information from.
Okay, Kopi, you know I'm a member of the Bar Association, right? Nigerian Bar Association. So we have a lot of platforms. When I say I've not seen a copy of the judgment, I'm just speaking fact. That doesn't mean I'm not.
Okay, please permit me to bring Honorable Ogbonna Nwuke in. Honorable, what do you say to this? The this whole status quo antebellum debate? You're an experienced politician.
I've stated my position is that the courts, like I said, do not probate and reprobate. And as we speak, there is an order of court restraining Martins Amehule and his co-travelers from parading as lawmakers in Rivers State. And I am aware that that matter was brought before the court by a current speaker. So my understanding of status quo, like I said, there are several legal interpretations of what status quo should represent. And we will leave that to the lawyers. But my understanding of it is that this matter, as it is, Victor Okojumbo is the speaker. And then within the pendency of the case, these gentlemen who are fighting to maybe reverse the position of a court of law, and those who are defending their positions should present their positions within 72 hours. Now, I don't know how you can build something on nothing. Because what is something? The something is that there was a case brought before the court by the one who is speaker at the moment. And you cannot therefore say before the war, I don't know what war you're talking about, but I do understand that when they say return to status quo, we all will wait to see what that interpretation is from the point of view of the court. But
all right, so Honorable, because of time, I want to quickly take Dr. Worlu's thought before we go for our commercial. Dr. Worlu.
Yes, Kofi, I'm sure that you have been talking about the crisis in Rivers State for maybe over 2 months before the appearance of Okojumbo and Co. on the scene. And that's what I mean by the start of the war. And don't forget that before this, the ruling by Justice Wali, there have been other rulings. And there have been attempts by Martin Amehule and Co. to approach the Court of Appeal. Don't forget that some Rivers elders had gone to court to say that because it was alleged that they had defected, that they had lost their seats. And of course, there was a ruling, and that matter went up to appeal court. And so when we're talking about status quo, it is basic law. I don't need to be a lawyer to understand it. It's basic law, and that's what I mean by start of the war. We can change war to litigation, start of the litigation. And what litigation are we talking about here? We're talking about the status of the assembly members who are said to have defected. So if the appeal court is looking at the matter, and when they say status quo ante, whether it's status quo ante or status quo antebellum or status quo ex ante or whatever, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that I have a fair understanding of what this case represents. They're talking about taking somebody, for example, if I have an issue with you, if I go into a contract with you, Kofi, and at some point I now rescind that contract, and the court says go back to status quo. What it means is go back to where you were in your position before you came to the court.
Okay, Honorable,
so,
we have to go
before
for a quick commercial.
Was that Martin Amehule was the Speaker of Rivers State Assembly, duly elected by the people of Rivers State.
All right, Dr. Worlu, we have to go for a quick break. We'll be back. Barrister and, of course, Honorable, we'll take your thoughts on return. It's still about this word, status quo ante or status quo antebellum. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, well, we are continuing. We're not maintaining status quo here. We're continuing with our conversation. We have a guest with us. Sogbeye Eli is a former chairman of Dagama Local Government Area. He's a legal practitioner joining us from Port Harcourt, Rivers State, virtually. We have Dr. Gift Worlu, who is a former commissioner for housing in Rivers State, also joining us virtually from Port Harcourt. And, of course, Hon Ogbonna Nwuke, former member representing Eche Omuma Federal Constituency in Rivers State. Gentlemen, thank you very much once again for being with us. I want to look at how today's ruling and the ongoing case will affect the balance of power in Rivers State. So, Sogbeye Eli, how would this affect, the balance of power, the ongoing political tussle in Rivers State, in your opinion?
Kofi, with respect, there's no part also. I don't know how that's on the panel, where the panel perceive that to mean, is it a war or whatever. There is one governor of Rivers State, and there can be only one governor per time. This one, His Excellency, similarly, Joseph Obra. That's one deputy governor. There are 3 senators, 13 House of Representatives, 11 PDP, 1 Labour Party, and 1 APC. And then 3 members of the House of Assembly today. I do not see any balance of power, whatever. What the House of Assembly had brought before the word for education is when 27 members voted with their feet in absolute obedience and loyalty to one man, not to the states, to attempt to impeach the governor. And when that failed, decided to change tactics by moving to the APC, thinking that because the president's party and the president has appointed their boss as minister, they could use some federal tactics like he used in 2015, 2014, 2015 to gain power. That's what happens. Now the matter has gone beyond that. It's a litigation issue right now. A plethora of cases are cooking left, right, center. None are gone to the level of appeal where an appeal has been determined. From that point, we can also move on to the higher appeal, which is the Supreme Court. But bottom line today is that 27 lawmakers, without anybody putting a gun to their heads, defected to the APC publicly. Now I hear they're denying there's no evidence. And I hear they're referring to the judgment of the High Court of Rivers State. Of course, you know, I've always insisted on seeing the CDC of that judgment. Now we're going to question it. The Evidence Act today recognizes electronically generated evidence, including evidence that you take from this recording now.
Okay, we'll come to Justice. Yes, we'll come to Justice. Yeah, no, I will come to that. That's my next question. That is, you're referring to Justice Okobo-Ligbasam, PhD's judgment. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. I think I have a copy of the CTC now. I'll come to. I'm sorry, sir. I want to just stick on today's appeal before we get there.
Yeah, I'm going to somewhere. Just let me land. Just let me land, please. So we also have evidence of people signed on affidavit in the federal courts, giving grounds for which they defected. Now they see that the cookie is crumbling and are beating a quick retreat. I had my brother, my friend, Dr. Worlu, who's a lecturer of my alma mater, University of Port Harcourt, say, call it what purported, and I almost choked with laughter here.
Okay,
when they were celebrating,
we'll come to that. I don't want you to put the cart before the horse. We'll come to that very shortly. I'll give you a chance to talk. Dr. Worlu, how do you think this ruling today, based on your own interpretation, will affect the ongoing political situation in Rivers State? Since Sogbeye Eli has a word with a word, probably what does so taking that out.
Well, listening to Sogbeye Eli, he said that he doesn't know anything about balance of power, which means that there is imbalance of power. That's what it naturally means. Now, there is imbalance of power because there's a kind of thinking that has brought us to where we are in Rivers State. And that is the thinking that led the governor at some point to refer to the State Assembly as boys, whose children's school fees he was paying at the time, and that ordinarily they had no right to question what he was doing as governor. That's what brought us here. Now, if you talk about balance of power, there are 3 tiers of government. You have the federal, you have the states, and you have the local government. And then in the states, you have 3 arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and of course the legislature. And we have crisis. You have often referred to Rivers crisis every day. If there is no crisis, there will naturally be imbalance. So what we're talking about now is how do we bring about balance? How do we get to the point where, how can you have 3 people as Rivers State House of Assembly that has 32 constituencies, and you say 3 persons only should represent the Assembly of Rivers State that will perform the function of assembly to checkmate the excesses of the executive? Is that possible? Even the Constitution frowns at it. The Constitution says in every state you must have at least 8 persons as members of assembly. Now, the issue of the status of the Martin Amewule and Co. is in court. And the court has said maintain status quo, which means allow them to continue to function until this matter is determined. But unfortunately, some people have taken the laws into their hands. And I'm hoping and thinking that very soon, the appeal court will give us a judgment. Perhaps either of the parties, depending on how the pendulum will swing, will go to the Supreme Court. And then someday, we will have a clear understanding of who is who and who is what in River State. And at that point, we're going to have, because for us to have balance, there must be a properly constituted River State House of Assembly with the right number of persons who are ready, able to perform their function as assembly to ensure that in River State, the judiciary is doing their work.
Okay, Dr. Worlu,
which is the bastion of democracy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Worlu. I want to go straight to Honorable Ogbonna Nwuke. Sir, your take on this issue of political balance, and from your own reading, where does this ruling today leave the crisis?
Well, in my opinion, in terms of balance of power, if the issue is at what point is River State at this time, I can tell you that we have stability in River State at this time. Now, the position of the Constitution is very clear when you talk in terms of 1091G. And when you abdicate your seat, when you leave the vehicle that brought you to power and you venture elsewhere, take an excursion, the answer is very clear, what the Constitution intended, except for where the Constitution makes a proviso on what should amount to division. Now, I do not believe that the Constitution intended that division in a state will be, if there are disagreements in a state, that will be what it meant by division. Now, all of the properties owned by any political party are owned by the National Secretariat. And therefore, I think that perhaps the Constitution was looking at the issue of division at the national level. As we speak, there is no division in the PDP. Now, except some people want us to believe that what we heard, what we saw, was a mere illusion, then we can begin to talk about the existence of people who shot themselves in the foot. Now, insofar as I'm concerned as a person, I believe very clearly that these gentlemen have abdicated their position. Now, the arguments for and against will continue until this matter is settled by the Supreme Court. But as we know, the Supreme Court has settled quite a lot of matters relating to circumstances like this. A lawmaker from the Labour Party recently lost his seat because he cross-carpeted. Lawmakers in Cross River State have lost their seats. So, as a journalist, I am careful not to discuss a matter that's before a court because it will be sub judice. So, perhaps as we analyze these matters in River State, what is critical to my mind is that we must allow the courts, they are giving them 72 hours to put their matters across. Of course, those arguments will take place in court by lawyers. Now, going forward, I do not imagine in any way that governance in River State have been impaired by the decision.
Okay, please hold the thought, Honorable Nwuke. I'm told we have to go for another commercial. I'm so sorry about that. We'll take that break, and when we come back, we'll continue. We'll have some further questions for you and the other guests. Please stay with us. Welcome back. It's still Politics Issue right here on News Central Television. Still with us, Gift Worlu, former Commissioner for Housing and indeed Agriculture in River State, Sogbeye Eli, lawyer and former chairman of Degama local government area in River State, and Honorable Ogbonna Nwuke, former member representing Eche federal constituency at the House of Representatives. Gentlemen, good to have you joining us tonight. Let's move on to look at the ruling or the judgment by Milord the Honorable Justice Ogbonna Nwuke, PhD. Barrister, what are your thoughts on all that's panned out? Now we know that Ogbonna Nwuke did rule that the 27 lawmakers never, are still members of the PDP. Like we heard it was said that the defection is not what is done on the pages of newspapers or online, but it must be effected in the register of the relevant political parties. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, with respect to the Honorable Justice Ogbonna Nwuke, that's his opinion. I will thank God that is not a judge of the Supreme Court. On the question of defections, Section 109, sub 1G, the Supreme Court has spoken. Under the doctrine of stare decisis, Basam J is bound by that decision. And I've read through the judgment, Ifeda Abegude against self-assembly, times and again. I never saw where the court ordered going into a voyage of discovery after discovering whether or not Ifeda Abegude had moved his membership of the Labour Party to Action Congress of Nigeria at the time and had gone to register. That was immaterial. That's immaterial. With respect to the judge, his opinion is entitled to it.
Are you saying that the judgment doesn't stand?
I'm not an appeal court to say it does not stand. When it goes to appeal court will decide that. I'm just saying the facts that I know. The law prohibiting defection did not say this is a means and way by which you would defect and then it means you have made a membership. A public demonstration of membership change, it's done in the case of Mewlanco, is enough. And I'm also saying that today in the world of electronically generated evidence or evidence acts, you cannot say that mere what you have seen on social media is not enough. It is enough.
So in other words, what you're saying, Sogbeye Eli, is that you're rejecting the judgment. Is that what you're saying?
You're putting words in my mouth. Allow me talk. My flow.
I'm just asking the question.
The judge.
Yeah.
No, I can disagree. If I was asked to file an appeal on that judgment, I'll formulate my grounds for appeal and particulars of error of the judge, and I'll say it. That I disagree with him with respect. That's the judge of the High Court doesn't mean that he has a be-all and end-all of the law. That's why we have appellate courts. And I'm saying that I rest my case in that Begude, which is the locus classicus, and of course he had Honorable Ogbonna Nwuke allude to the fact that same thing has happened in Ebonyi State. It happened in Cross River even, all right? Where if you defect in violation of Section 109(1)G, you will lose your seat. And if you read that law again, it does not need judicial explanation. It says you shall vacate.
Okay, so Sogbeye Eli, we went down this road a couple of days ago. We're back here. Now, you said you had not seen a certified true copy, and I had not seen it, so there was nothing.
Yes.
But now you've seen it, and you are now saying it's the judge's opinion. I want to ask you, as a lawyer, as a lawyer, who has been called to bar under the Supreme Court of Nigeria, based on the judgment as it stands today, did Amehule and the other lawmakers defect? Are they still members of the PDP?
The judgment of Justice Ogbonna Nwuke cannot override that of the Supreme Court. They are not members. Okay. Ogbonna Nwuke is of the High Court of River States. His brother judges on the same bench have said so, they are not. Until the Appeal Court says otherwise, until the Supreme Court affirms, they are not. Now, the judgment that means already declared. I went on to say what he has said, and I told him to wait for the CTC. Now the CTC is out, and I don't agree with him with respect. Ogbonna also knows that Martha Amehule filed an affidavit before the court, Justice Okorowo of the High Court Abuja. What he has said that perjury is allowed. It's not allowed in the law. You cannot approbate and reprobate. The man filed an affidavit, sworn affidavit, in accordance with the Oath Act, saying that everything he has said was true and gave grounds for defections on behalf of his brothers, his friends, 27 of them. And you come back and tell us that what you saw here, as you're seeing on the screen, is immaterial. I don't agree with the judge.
Okay.
And in course of time, you will see.
Okay. Let me bring in
he was wrong.
Let me bring in Dr. Gift Worlu. Dr. Worlu, what do you say?
Kofi, the law, as I understand it, is that an individual is innocent until found guilty. What Sogbeye Eli wants me to understand here now is that these people are guilty pending when they'll be found innocent. And that's not correct. If a matter is before the court, for crying out loud, our governor and several other governors, they contested the election, they won, and some people went to court challenging that victory. For the court of first instance, sometimes you find a situation where they, and then he'll go on appeal. But he remains the governor. He go on appeal, the governor probably loses, he goes on appeal to the Supreme Court. He still remains governor until the matter is finally decided. I recall the case of Hon Nwuke in 2015. That matter went from the first court of first instance to the appeal court up to Supreme Court. In the case of the present governor, it went from first court to appeal court to Supreme Court. But he remained on his seat as governor until that matter was determined. The thinking here now is that these people have lost their seat for a matter that is still pending in court. And it is based on that thinking that they have elected new people to take charge as Rivers State House Assembly. That can never be correct. This is what I call, kangaroo kind of law that people are making. It amounts to self-help, and it is dangerous for our democracy. And that is why I'm saying that perhaps we should just hold our peace. I don't want to...
Okay, Dr. Olu, we've moved on from that. Dr. Olu, please. Dr. Gift Worlu. Dr. Gift Worlu, please. I want us to...
know that
I want us to...
Later,
Dr. Gift Worlu.
The Supreme Court will rule on this matter, and then we will know who stands where.
Okay, Dr. Gift Worlu.
But again, going back to the issue...
I want us to come back to the matter we're looking at now.
Going back to the issue of what the implication of this judgment, this current judgment is. I expect that by tomorrow morning, if the governor wants to do anything with the assembly, he should send it to Martin Amaewhule and co. Because that is what the status quo is. That is
okay,
going back
Dr. Worlu, we have just 2 minutes before we go on break. I want you to... Okay, we'll be back. We'll take another commercial break. But I want you to talk about the Bassam judgment, which said that the lawmakers did not leave the PDP. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's get straight back to our guests who've been doing justice to our topic today, ongoing litigations and the situation in Rivers State political crisis. Dr. Olu, please, in just 2 minutes or even less, what's your view on the Bassam ruling and how it affects everything in Rivers State, where, of course, the judgment said that the defected lawmakers are still members of the People's Democratic Party. Now, you've listened to your counterpart on this program, Sogbeye Eli. He's made a point that we've had rulings on these judgments on such issues already, and these judgments have gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and therefore the Rivers State High Court cannot come up with a judgment when there was pictorial evidence everywhere as well. So what do you say to that?
Kofi, as far as I understand law and judiciary, there are very few matters that are entirely novel. Every matter has a precedent. And what happens is that if there is an issue and you approach the court, it is left for lawyers to argue their case and provide evidence, because the law says that he who alleges must prove. Now, if you provide evidence and it is in tandem with an existing judgment, which is law, then of course, the judges will err on the side of the law, which is their job to do. They will interpret the law in line with existing precedent and, of course, the evidence adduced by the parties in the matter. And that's why we're saying that in this case, Justice Bassam looked at the argument of the lawyers and the litigants, looked at the law, looked at what is possible and what is not. I'm sure that they also looked at the procedure for defecting.
All right.
And at what point it can be said that somebody has actually defected?
Okay.
Kofi, let me tell you something.
Okay, finally,
if you come to the University of Port Harcourt, for example, and you wear the certain clothes that has Uniport color, and you say, I'm a student of Uniport, that doesn't make you a student of Uniport.
Okay.
You must be admitted
Dr.
by the admission office.
Yeah,
and you
I want to go over
registered
to
as a student
now.
of the university.
Thank you.
Before you can answer that name.
Okay,
So
Honorable.
what the justice has said should be binding until it is overturned by higher court.
Okay, Honorable, over to you, sir.
No, I don't think we need to spend so much energy trying to argue something that in the eyes of men and possibly in the eyes of the law do not represent reality. First, let's even go back to the issue of the declaration of these lawmakers for another political platform. We journalists were invited after they sat, and we had them sing on the mandate we stand, and then had them add Jagaban. Those were the voices. They were not the voices of other people. And reports were duly circulated around the country, indicating that these lawmakers had defected. And I want to ask, assuming we're not conceding that these 27 lawmakers met with an accident, are you likely to say, on account of the fact that they are no longer alive, that the House of Assembly cannot sit? It doesn't add up. I mean, I respect the views of my brother and friend, Gift, but we also should be careful not to overstretch logic. Now, who, for example, was Tony Okocha referring to when he said PDP lawmakers should impeach Governor Siminalayi Fubara? What was he referring to? I'm just trying to make us believe that we're facing the illusion that magicians create, that the things that we heard, the things that we saw, never happened. You know, it's a great irony. But let me say this. It doesn't matter how we argue, how much we say. I just want to hope that those who should not step into the arena of justice would try very hard not to step into the arena of justice. Okay, and as it stands, we have respect for those who operate in the temple of justice.
Okay, so
whatever decision, please allow me just finish this in 1 second or so. I'll be
all right,
done.
sir. All right, sir.
I just want to just simply say that no matter what these arguments are, this situation on ground is such that it is impossible, really impossible, to assume that the announcement on status quo means that...
Gentlemen, I'm afraid, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Honorable. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So, but two of you, yourself and Barrister, are saying that no matter what the judgment was, it does not exist. Is that what you're saying? Because it's on paper. Until a judgment is vacated, it exists. It's not been vacated.
Sorry, Kofi.
Gentlemen, we have to go. We have to go. I'm talking about Bassam's judgment.
Can I correct the impression?
We have to go, gentlemen. We'll have a part 2 next week. Because out of time. My name is Kofi Bartels. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I want to say thanks to Sogbeye Eli, Gift Worlu, and Hon Ogbonna Nwuke. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We'll return next week with more politics. Good night.